Hey guys, another video for our How to Do Stuff in Japan playlist and our mini series on being married to a Japanese person. Today's topic is love. There's a big topic, and it's because a lot of people have commented after watching the previous 5 videos that there doesn't seem to be any place for love in the discussion, or there's been no mention of love in the discussion. So they want to know about that. Well, very tricky, isn't it? I mean, people have been wondering about this for thousands of years, haven't they? What is love? No idea. Very difficult topic. Want to start by clarifying, as always with these how-to videos, these how-to videos are just based on observations, based on what we see in our day-to-day lives in Japan, and they're generalizations, of course. They're not always the case. There are exceptions to this, but this is generally what is the case, and it's likely that if you experience these things, that this is likely how you're likely to experience them, because it's the general way they are. Another addition to that too is recently a couple of people commented that, oh, this isn't true of the younger generation. The younger generation is different. This guy must be talking about the older generation. Our Japanese family, the youngest member is 1 month old, and the oldest member is 99 years old, turning 100 in September. The youngest married couple are 23 years old. The oldest married couple are 85 years old. And that's a fair cross-section of what our friends and family are like. So we've got friends and family, you know, elementary school, high school, university, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s people in our lives. So these observations are based on across the board. If we do talk about something that's more particular of older generation or younger generation, we will say so. But if we don't say so, it's because, again, it's a generalization that's generally true across the board. So that's the case. So these married videos about being married, yeah, it applies equally to the 23-year-olds that we see and that we know, as it does to the 85-year-olds who we see and we know, because obviously they're a reflection of each other. You know, the younger ones are growing up watching the older ones, and that's their stereo, that's their role models, isn't it? That's where their role models come from. So it's only natural. So there's that. And of course, as always, there are exceptions to this. Now, very difficult with love. Geez, what a topic. You know, how do you quantify it? It's a really difficult thing. However, what we can talk about is how it's expressed and how it's shown. It's very difficult to know how it's felt, but we can talk about how it's expressed and how it's shown and how it's influenced by cultural differences, which it is. So just one more clarification too. We know lots of examples of really loving relationships between Japanese people here. In particular, I'm thinking about some parents and some kids where they show lots of physical affection and lots of love to each other. And a couple of couples, it's not really common with couples, but we do know a couple of couples that show a lot of love to each other, and different examples like that. So of course that does exist, but generally physical demonstrations of affection or love are not normally shown, and that can be difficult when you first find yourself in a relationship with a Japanese person, because a couple of examples are coming to mind. One is, if you want to see this for yourself, go to the departures or arrivals area of a Japanese airport. And most places around the world, the departures and arrivals area of an airport is full of emotion, isn't it? You know, people crying and hugging, and you know, usually at the arrivals end, people are crying and hugging in happiness. At the departures end, usually people are crying and hugging with sadness because they're saying goodbye. That's really common, isn't it, all around the world? Not in a Japanese airport. Usually, and we've experienced this ourselves with family members coming and going, and with us coming and going from Japan, that family members might come to the airport to see you off, and then when it comes time to go, they'll bow and say, okay, best of luck, take care, kiyotsukete, and see you when you get back. And and off you go. So there's no hugging or kissing or or public displays of affection like what you might be used to in other countries. And you can see that for yourself. If you come to Japan and you're in the arrivals and departures area in Japan, have a look around, you'll see it for yourself. That's just the way it is. And that's again, that's across the board, younger people and older people and everybody. You know, usually some awkward sort of standing about and some sort of half bowing and sort of see you later, and then that's about it. Usually the case. So there's that, and of course, if you find yourself in a relationship with a Japanese person, this can be difficult. You know, if you find yourself leaving the country to go, say, you know, to go back to your own country for a visit, or for some reason going away, you know, and you find yourself at the airport like that, you might find that that's the reaction you get from your partner. They might just go, "Oh, I'll take care then," and sort of that's it, you know. And another example I've got coming to mind right now was, I remember dropping my wife off at work once years ago, and it was a back entrance to her workplace, and there was no one there. It was just sort of a loading dock, and I'd pulled up at this loading dock in the morning. We'd only been married for a short time, and pulled up at this back, and there's a back door there that went into the office, and there was nobody around, nobody in sight. And I leaned across to kiss her goodbye, and she pulled away like this and went, "Oh, I'll see you this afternoon," and jumped out, and off she went. And even though I understood, it's like, oh, right, okay, because we're at work, even though there's nobody around, nobody looking, oh, it just feels too uncomfortable. And her natural instinct was, no, you don't do that around the workplace, right? So off she went. And even though you might understand that on an intellectual level, when you come from a culture where kissing goodbye to your partner before they get out of the car is perfectly normal, you know, and it wouldn't matter who was watching, would it? You know, if you're married to somebody, in a lot of cultures, a lot of societies, if you're married to someone, kissing them hello or goodbye would be perfectly normal, wouldn't it? In fact, people would think it was good, wouldn't they? What a lovely husband you have. You know, what a lovely husband you have kissing you goodbye. Isn't that wonderful? Whereas here, it would be seen as sort of clingy and inappropriate and public display of, you know, no, that's not cool at all. So that's the first thing. As far as love, public displays of love or affection are not on, and that's across the board as well, which means when you're out somewhere, and we've sort of touched on this once before on the video about jealousy and that sort of thing, when you're out in public with people too, you might be having dinner with some other people, and you're drinking and having dinner, and everybody's relaxed and happy, and you know, in a lot of cultures, putting your arm around your partner, or holding hands with your partner, or giving your partner a kiss on the cheek, or some sort of display of affection, not necessarily display, but some showing of affection to your partner for their benefit, not for everyone else to see necessarily, but just sort of a quiet little bit of sharing of affection with your partner in a circumstance like that would be considered normal, wouldn't it? And would make you and your partner feel good. And if anybody did happen to see it, they'd go, "Oh, aren't you guys sweet? Aren't you romantic?" You know, something like that. And it would be all feel good all the way around, wouldn't it? Whereas again here, it's not normally done. It would be seen as being clingy and childish and inappropriate and uncool. Cool people in their relationships here don't need to show it. It's sort of something that isn't shown because you're cool with your relationship and that it's all good, and you don't need to be doing that. If you do that, it sort of looks a bit clingy and a bit desperate and a bit sort of odd. So showing of affection and love, and see, this is in a relationship, it's not just the feeling of love, is it? It's the showing of it, the demonstration of it, that is sort of an important part of it to a lot of people, isn't it? You know, so for a foreigner, this can be difficult, and you will hear this if you talk to people who have Japanese partners. Some of them do get very frustrated with this sort of thing, and any sort of closeness at all in a public, not just physically, but like emotional closeness, or the way you talk to each other and that sort of thing, is just not considered very cool here, and will generally be resisted by a Japanese partner. They won't like it. It's just not cool, and you'll see yourself if you watch Japanese couples together and the way they relate to each other. Usually, there's no sort of showing of affection or no sort of they just don't seem close. Quite often you won't know if you're at a party or some sort of gathering where there's a big group of people and there's a bunch of people there you don't know. It's really possible that there'll be couples there that you won't even know are couples. And I've experienced this regularly, where there'll be a big group of people and there's people all over the place, there's men and women, there's people talking, and then you won't know until the end of the night, two of them get in the car together to go home, and you go, oh, they together, yeah, they're married. And during the night, you'll have seen no hint, no hint that they even know each other, because they just sort of treat each other in the sort of same way that everybody else is treating everybody, and sort of arm's length sort of thing, and there's no hint that there might be sort of they might actually be married, and that's really common. So that can be tricky, and if you talk to people who are married to Japanese people, they will often tell you that they find that difficult, that distance from your partner, if there's anybody around at all. And because see, that sort of can follow on a little bit, because then in private, people aren't real used to showing affection and being too close. Of course they are. In private it's totally different, of course, but it does sort of follow over. The other one that's probably could even, to some people, even be more difficult to take is where in some societies and cultures we consider unconditional love to be very important. That our partner love us and we love our partner no matter what, and that always should come first, so that if our partner has some problem with another person, or has some problem with another group, or has some problem with society, or has some problem in general, whatever it is, sickness and in health, or whatever sort of drama that they've got going on in their life, that our idea of unconditional love is that we support them no matter what. And that's not often the case in Japan, because usually in Japan the appropriate behaviour and the right thing to do for society is considered to be the most important thing. And if your partner, if you do something either in your local area, like you do something wrong with the rubbish, or so break the rubbish rule and put the wrong rubbish in the wrong bag in the wrong place, or something like that, or just, probably there's got to be better examples than that, just do something different to what everybody else does, or have some problem with some other person, or some argument with some other person, or some sort of conflict, or some sort of drama, or want to do something differently from the way everybody else does it, some sort of circumstance like that, where your partner has to either support you or support society's way of thinking. Your Japanese partner will usually support society's way of thinking. And this can be a really tough one, because if you're used to the concept of unconditional love, where you support each other no matter what, then you find yourself in some sort of conflict or drama with some other person, or some sort of, you've broken some sort of rule, and it doesn't have to be a big rule. The rubbish one, I actually have experienced the rubbish one. Some of you might remember in the house renovation videos years ago, we had a circumstance where we had a big can of paint that had actually been left in the house for years, and it was hard. The inside was half full, but it was hard. And the rule says you're not supposed to put liquid paint in the rubbish. But it had actually gone hard, so it was a can with this hard paint inside it. And I put it inside the bag and put it out with the rubbish, and it was rejected by the rubbish people. And in the partner lost, my wife lost her mind over it, And instead of going, oh well, and I was actually in the right. But because the local garbage police, the local old guys who police what you put in the rubbish, had put the sticker on it that said it's not right, even though it was right. And there's just little things like this. I mean, that's why I mentioned the rubbish one, it was in my mind. But little things like that, and often big things, it could go to bigger things as well, where you have some way of thinking about something that you think is really important, and you think, whether it's with your kids at school, or whether it's you at work, or something about a choice where you want to do things a certain way and society says you should do it another way. Your Japanese partner is going to go the Japanese way. and not support you, and it can really leave you feeling out there. It can really leave you feeling like, you know, I can't even get your support on this. You know, I can't even get your support on this. And quite often it's things that doesn't really affect anybody else. You know, some other thing where you just want to do it your way, and society's telling you got to do it the other way, and your partner won't support you on it. And it's like, come on, you know, we're supposed to be a team, and you're supposed to support me on this, and it can really leave you feeling out there. And it's just that from the Japanese person's point of view, all their life conforming to the way things are done and doing things the way they're supposed to be done in Japan. All those how-to videos, those 200 how-to videos we've got, on a lot of them people say, I wouldn't do it that way, I couldn't do it that way, and you know, totally understandable because they come from different cultures. But when you're married to a Japanese person and you have one of these things come up, they expect you to do it the way that everybody else does it as well. And you know, when you come from a culture where you know your partner has to decide between the neighbour and you, that's another example too. If you have a falling out with a neighbour, or falling out with an in-law, one of your in-laws, or some other person, if you have a falling out with someone else, quite often, even if you're in the right, and that an objective person could look at it and say, no, you're in the right, quite often your partner will back the other person. And it's because it's a Japanese way of doing things and a Japanese way of thinking, that it doesn't really matter what anyone does to you, it's how you behave. So if someone's rude to you or not polite to you or does something that isn't cool, that it's your behaviour that's important. And in some countries, if you lost it to some rude person and told to bugger off or something, your partner would say, oh no, it's fair enough, that person was extremely rude. And quite often you have a situation like that here. These examples that I'm trying to get across to you, quite often if you tell it to another person from your own country or another foreigner in Japan, like, oh, that's crazy, you know, and they'll see your point of view, but your own partner, your own wife, or your own husband, your own Japanese wife or your own Japanese husband won't be able to see your point of view, because they just can't. They've grown up seeing things from the point of view of the society, not the individual. And if you're looking for an unconditional love sort of thing where people support each other no matter what, you know, that's not going to always be the case here. The society is put before the individual, and that comes down to you too. So why I'm making this point is that one of the central parts of the feeling of love for a lot of us in a lot of our society is that our partner puts us before other people and before society in general, and you know that your partner puts you number one, basically, don't they? You know, and we put our partner number one in everything, whereas in Japan that's not the case. Society's number one, and your obligations and responsibilities to your work and your society and your neighbourhood and your in-laws and everybody else, that comes first, above your own feelings and your own happiness. So as far as the expression of love and the showing of love and the feeling of love, it can be really, it's in a different way. It's in a different way. This topic might deserve another video. We're almost out of time. This topic might deserve another video because it's shown in other ways. It's shown in other ways that we're not really, probably not used to, most of us, you know. So anyway, big generalizations again, but if you end up with a Japanese partner, this is pretty much what you can expect. It's pretty much going to be the case, and if you speak to people who've already got Japanese partners, they will probably agree. And in actual fact, if you look in the comments section underneath these other 5 videos we've made already on this topic, there's been people who are married to Japanese people or have been married to Japanese people in the past who have agreed and said, yeah, I experienced that. So it is the case. It is often the case. It's often the case. So anyway, there it was. Hopefully it's useful to somebody. More videos coming soon.